Hello everyone and welcome to the Digimon Ghost Game video. This time I'm going to be going over my thoughts on episode 9 of Ghost Game, which is called The Executioner. Now, just a brief warning before we get into my review. Obviously, there will be spoilers in this review, so keep that in mind that this sort of quick video is based on the fact that you've probably already seen the episode. So if you haven't, go watch the episode and then watch this video, because I don't want to spoil anything, because I think this is a really good episode and it's something that I definitely recommend you watch, rather than just hear my rambly kind of thoughts about the episode. So just a brief synopsis to recap. So this episode we learned that there's a Digimon assassin who is murdering Digimon to increase his body count, and he's actually counting in German, and he starts at like 996, and with each kill he goes up by 1. The group is rather scared of this because they're all thinking about how their Digimon are at risk, and we learn that they want to use Jellymon as bait, but more as unintentional bait. We learn that Jellymon has like a side gig of doing quests for like these NPC random Digimon that are showing up, which is kind of like a cute little side thing that like, oh yeah, she has a side business. We have Angoramon who hangs out and drinks tea with the Digimon while Jellymon is doing fetch quests for them. And she's not stealing items either, which I was surprised by. She's actually going to be using Kiyoshiro's credit card, so I thought that was an interesting little bit. So Jellymon is attacked by the assassin, who we learn to be a Digimon called Sealsdramon, and they save Jellymon. However, Gammamon is about to be shot, or rather knifed, and Bokumon jumps in the way and ends up dying, and bursts into like this big thing of data, which is how Digimon die in a lot of Digimon seasons actually. Gammamon breaks down, and is about to be hit again by another knife, and Hero is about to jump in the way, and we have Hero's vitals kind of fluctuating. They start to increase, but then they decrease, and Gammamon screams, and Gammamon evolves to another evolution form, which is Gullus Gammamon. Gullus Gammamon is about to attack the group when something attacks him, and this causes him to revert. We learn that Digimon become Digitama as they die, and then Gammamon bursts into tears. And then we get a new outro for the anime, which is super cool, and it includes the evolution forms for all the other adults, so that's kind of exciting, and it's a nice little tune, which is kind of unfitting because it's this really happy and joyful tune after we've just had this absolutely heartbreaking episode. So a few things that this episode introduces. So we've got the concept of death and rebirth. We learn that Digimon do in fact get reborn as Digi-Eggs when they are killed, but we also learn that when they are reborn, they're not necessarily the same Digimon. So Bokumon won't be the Bokumon that they know. So that's kind of tragic. While it may still evolve to a Bokumon, it's sort of implied that those memories won't really exist. And in fact, this is probably the first time I think we've seen on-screen deaths. We had the Systemon go-karting episode, which we had semi-death. They were absorbed into the scythe, but it wasn't really said that they were dead. They were just absorbed, and they weren't being reborn as Digitama. So this is the first time I want to say that there's been actual on-screen death, because they were absorbed. They live in the scythe of Skull Phantomon, or Metal Phantomon, I can never remember. So they do kind of still exist, but this is the first time they've been dead, and that's why we learn about the Digitama. We also have a bit of an insight about what that sort of inspiration burst is when they shout a Digimon's attack, and this is when a Digimon uses an attack for the first time. We get like this inspiration burst, but it seems like it does take something out of the human partner. So Hero seems to almost like struggle with it. He seems to have a migraine almost, instead of shouting out the Digimon's attack, and Gullus Gammamon says it is useless and just will do it himself. So we also see that maybe that the human partner screaming out the attack isn't necessarily super needed, but it just helps them do the attack, but they can do it on their own. So that was something that we also were shown a bit. We also got a little bit of an insight into what the vitals are and how they may influence evolution. Of course, on the Vital Bracelet toy, we know that Gullus Gammamon is the bad care evolution, so if you have low trophies, low battles, and or low vitals, you get LostinTranslationmon. So in this evolution sequence, we had the vitals go up and then down. So we sort of get an insight that that vital screen that we get before an evolution does actually maybe have something to do with what evolution that we are getting. So that's something that's quite interesting. In terms of my feelings about this episode, it definitely exceeded my expectations for a Dark Evolution episode. I try not to have my hopes up high with Dark Evolution episodes. I really do like Dark Evolutions as a concept. I like that they tend to be a punishment for the human, but in this case it wasn't a punishment for a human, it was more so he lost his temper, in the same way that in Adventure Colon the Dark Evolution was the Digimon experiencing trauma and having a meltdown and then evolving to a dark form, rather than a mistake from the human partner. So it's at this point it's like 50-50, 50-50, like the partner's made a mistake, and 50-50 the Digimon is freaking out. And sometimes it's both, like in Digimon Sabers, it was Masaru and his Digimon both freaking out at the same time, and that caused the Dark Evolution. So, in fact, this evolution episode was so, like, it exceeded my expectations so much, it in fact didn't actually feel like an episode of Digimon. It actually reminded me of an anime that I watched about a year ago called Claymore. It's not a new anime by any means, but in this show we have like a subspecies of human who are part demon, and they use their demon powers within them to attack, but they have to only use like 5% of their demon powers, because they use more than that, they basically dark evolve and become like these hideous demon monsters, and if they use a certain percentage of their demon powers, they actually can't revert back to their human form. And this episode just reminded me so much of Claymore, especially with the scream that Gamamon did, like his whole face was contorted. It was kind of scary actually. In terms of something else I liked about this episode, it was that it's perfectly paced, or rather it felt perfectly paced, especially compared to previous episodes. So in previous episodes we've had a really strong start, and a pretty good medium as well, or middle part, and then at the end we have to just completely blast through the climax because we've only got 2 minutes left of the episode. So it always spends too much time on that beginning part, and it's really good, but it never has enough time for any part after the middle part. But I felt like this episode was perfectly paced. It told the story perfectly. It said, this is the threat, this is the Mon of the Week, Sealsmon, he is an assassin, he's counting his body count, and we have the Digimon kind of wanting to know how to stop that. We have a Digimon dying, we have Gamamon dark evolving because he's freaking out, and then we have the end of the battle. We learn about what Digitama are and how Digimon are reborn. And we also have a little bit of a cliffhanger. We see Talmon Uva picking up the Digitama, or at least approaching it like he's going to return it, or put it back in the digital world. And we also have the shot of a black Agumon looking very suspicious, and I guess this Digimon may have been who rescued the characters from being killed by LostinTranslationmon. I'm wondering if this Digimon is actually Hiro's dad's Digimon, or if we're doing Detective Pikachu here and this black Agumon is maybe the dad. Which, honestly, I feel like at this point with this show it's either or. I'm wondering if they are doing a Detective Pikachu here, because that'd be kind of cool. And I don't know, I kind of would like that. And also, typical Digimon, you didn't have to put an Agumon in, but you did. But at least he's not orange. So I applaud them for the fact of just changing Agumon's colour, because he's busy in every season of Digimon, and I guess I kind of understand that, but at least they changed the colour, so it's kind of like, ooh, look, this one's black though, which is kind of cool. And maybe we'll get Blackwall Greymon again, like in 02, I don't know. And maybe it just gives them excuse to make another Vital Bracelet dim card with an Agumon on it, even though we've already had 2 with Black Agumon. 3rd time's the charm, right? But in any case, those are my thoughts on episode 9, and I think I did actually at the start, didn't I? Yes, I did. I did say episode 9. No, this is actually episode 13. I'm assuming the title will also say episode 13 of this video, So I hope if anyone caught the error at the start, let me know in the comments, because I'm not going to edit it. I'm not going to edit me saying 9 instead of 13. So those were my thoughts on episode 13, not 9. Maybe it's because I could give it a 9 out of 5 if I could. But this is definitely my favourite episode of Digimon Ghost Game so far. And that's saying a lot, because I've really, really enjoyed Ghost Game overall so far. So this is definitely a 5 out of 5, and definitely ranking at the top of all the other episodes we've had so far, and I'm really excited to see what they're going to do next. This episode made me want more. The other episodes have just kind of finished, and while I've liked the show and I enjoy the episode, the other episodes haven't really made me want to really watch another episode immediately. Like, I'm like, okay, I can wait a week. This episode's like, oh, but we've got Digitama, we've got the Black Talmon Uva with the Digitama, we've got the Black Agumon. There's things going on. How's Gamamon going to handle the loss of Bokumon? What about Bakumon? Also, this episode had Clockmon again. That was nice to see. So this episode really did have a lot of stuff, and it really made me want to watch more. And I'm a big fan of Digimon Ghost Game, and this episode, I felt like any complaints that I could have had about the season, this episode definitely fixed. As I mentioned every week, my previous complaints have been the fact that it's not pacing right. They have really strong starts, and they spend so much time on the start, they don't have much time for the climax to really do much with that final fight. This episode was perfectly paced for the time that was given. No notes, basically. So I love this episode, and I'm very much looking forward to episode 14, which seems to be, judging by the preview, a little bit of a calmer episode. It's like, okay, we need a breather. We need to chill. Just for an episode, we'll chill. So, let's do that. So, in any case, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode in the comments, and that is episode 13, not 9, and I will see you on the next video. Bye!